Peace, greetings, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. January 10th, 2020, first recording for the year. I'm your co-host, Kujo Brown.
And I'm your other co-host, the bad guy. Happy New Year's, everybody.
Hell yeah, and we are back in the Cypher. Thank you all for being live here with us. We're trying to just get things kicked off right for the new year. And we got definitely a lot of things to talk about because so much happened. So much happened, man. So, I mean, what's going on with you, bad guy? What you got
None, man.
on the plate right now?
Finally on the this is not a new year foot. I'm finally not saying 2025 or typing it. So
Yeah, you know how that is. You end
Yeah.
up doing that for like a couple of weeks.
yeah, dude, in the first week back, because I always take off the last 2 weeks of the year because of the kids. But yo, that first week back, man, no matter what happens, it sucks. It could be the hardest week or the slowest week ever, but it just sucks.
It takes a bit, man. It takes a little bit to get back in the groove of things. And I have to tell you, I don't know, man. I don't miss getting back in the groove of things. I like the time, and I hope everybody knows what I'm talking about. That free time you have to spend time with family, to chill and hang out. It's exceptional, man. You
See,
gotta appreciate that.
So I always have time to hang out with the family. But what I like about that time of the year is that I'm not pressured to split that time. Like I could spend it how I please, where for most of the year, honestly, I'm scheduling in the time with my family.
I got you. That sounds a lot better, man. What do you say for the new year though? What are you looking at? Because we before we get into it, I'm just curious.
Well, like I told you off air, I'm not much of a New Year's resolution. I hate fucking New Year, new me people. That's it, dude.
Hey, I hear you.
That's a red flag for me. If it's a new year and a new you, that means you're not you. You're whoever's trend you're following this year.
It's tricky, and I'll say this, and we could probably dip and keep moving on. But if your thing is to make a New Year's resolution, a change in your life, so to speak, that means you're going to have to rewire your brain, and you can never avoid your brain and the way it has been wired prior, and that's the part that catches everybody and makes you uncomfortable. It makes you fall back into the same old habits because your body's wired that way. But again, we can always rewire ourselves. So people out there that are making some changes, go do what you got to do and keep rewiring yourself, man. Your brain computer is powerful.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. The more you do a thing, the more you rewire that wiring in your brain that's got you doing things the wrong way. The problem is if you base it around a time of year, the further out you get from that time of year, the more discouraged you become.
Yeah, that could happen too, man. Absolutely. But to all my people out there trying to make something happen, don't get too discouraged and keep pushing forward, man, because you never know what the future holds.
Discipline, not motivation.
Yeah.
And that's my New Year's resolution. Discipline with what we're doing here. Dedicating more, written in stone time.
Consistency, y'all. Consistency. So that being said, let's be consistent and jump right into this first take of this video. This is to give respect, to give credit where credit is due. This is Brianna Joy, actually. She is one of the hosts, or the host, I should say, of Bad Faith Podcast. Good stuff. And I think there's a lot of things you could take from this conversation that's going to be had right here. I'm going to let Bad Guy take control of the wheel. We're going to run this real quick for y'all.
I called the president and spoke with him directly to register my opposition to this act and to make clear that it was an opposition based on being opposed to a pursuit of regime change, to the violation of federal international law, and a desire to see that be consistent each and every day.
And what was his response to you in that conversation?
I registered my opposition, I made it clear, and we left it at that.
What do you think about what he said? I was kind of curious what you think, and as a jump, because what he's basically saying is, yo, I spoke to him, I voiced my opinion, I let it be known.
Well, and look, I mean, that's really the only power he has, is to voice his opinion and keep it moving. There was a lot of chatter on the internet about this press conference here and a tweet that he had issued earlier that day saying that he was briefed on Maduro being brought to New York City. And what a lot of Trump supporters pointed out that they're 100% correct about is he doesn't have clearance to get top level briefings. He's not in that decision cipher. So the best he could do is voice his opinion. Everything else is just protest. And one of the things that I've seen in Mamdani that I think I like so far is that he's not one for idle protest. He's more of an action guy, right?
Yeah.
The only action he could take is giving his opinion and then keeping it moving.
Yep. Can't do much, buddy. Can't do much. That power is not with him. It's not with him. And he has to, and he already knows that.
And
That's absolutely
and
correct.
really what's an admirable trait so far is that he recognizes the fights where he can be effective and where he can't be effective. And he addresses them accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Move as you can within that circle, bro. You know what I mean?
Do I think it's good? Like Zoran's statement is good and that what he said was good. And the idea of him calling Trump is good. Yeah, I guess. But the follow-up question and response, I felt sort of spoke volumes. And it goes to this, my setup question of, is this a sort of just the appearance of a left insurgency, of left power? Is this just a kind of release valve for our frustration of Trump's imperialism and the imperialism of both Democrats and Republicans that have come before him, that we've got a guy like Zoran who has the ability to call up Trump and register his complaint. But when the follow-up question of, okay, well, what did Trump say comes through, he's like, well, I registered my complaint. And is that all we are left with, that we could all just like drop our complaints into a complaint box that ends up getting dumped into a recycling bin that gets dumped into the generalized trash refuse and ends up in some garbage dump in East Asia?
One of the things that's important about this clip, I think that people, gloss over, but I think we already kind of understand it, but we don't speak about it enough, is that there's this kind of release valve that she mentioned. And I call it like a volcano. It's like an eruptive phase that both parties are fully aware of. It's a bipartisan thing where they're trying to make sure they don't anger the public as much when it comes to certain things by almost minimizing certain things and trying not to escalate the situation and trying to their best to keep it from erupting. And again, this is a control done by the Democratic Party frequently because they're saying it to us right now. Just wait till the midterms. Just wait till the midterms. And it's funny because the opposite is being done by the Republican Party, where the Republican Party is going, we want you to fly off the handle. We want you to act crazy and go out in the streets and protest so we could then have reason to enforce martial law.
Okay,
hold on.
Let me just get a little clarification.
You ain't getting out.
Let me get a little clarification from you. When you say they want them out in the street protesting, you're talking about the Democrats to the Democrat supporters and the Republicans to the Democrat supporters. Because that's who it looks like they want out in the street nowadays.
What do you mean, the Republicans and Democrats?
The Republicans want the Democrats out in the streets so that they can get incidents like what we're going to talk about in a little while, and then, like you just said, impose martial law.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then the Democrats, and I want to make sure that me and you are maybe not on the same page, but we're seeing the same thing here. And then, make sure that anyone who's listening is clear on what we're saying. The converse of that would be that the Democrats are telling their supporters, just wait for the midterms. The midterms are almost here, right? That pie in the sky. When we get to point X in the future, everything will be okay. No, I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah. This is it's a dangerous space because we've already seen this happen before in other instances. One of them being once 9/11 happened and the Patriot Act was pushed, there was a lot of pushback from Democrats and left-wing people stating like, this is not a good thing that they are able to push this bill and have this passed. And a gentleman said, well, when the Democrats get in office, do you think they're going to roll it back? And that's the thing I don't think people understand. They're not going to roll it back. The Democrats are slowly marching you towards authoritarianism. The Republicans are going, let's not even get your feet warm. You're going to jump. We're going to push little Timmy in the pool. You're going to learn how to swim real quick.
You are
what I mean?
1,000,000% right. No, it's all, I think just by the nature of the way government, not our government or any specific government, just the concept of government is authoritarian, right? So all government officials are going to want to push to an authoritarian point. And like you said, the Democrats have sugarcoated it and gift wrapped it and made us feel like we want it. where at least on our more left-leaning side of the spectrum, Republicans are doing it hardcore. Now, if you talk to somebody on the other side, they're going to have the opposite view of that. They're going to say that the Republicans are protecting their freedoms while it is the Democrats that are trying to take it away. But in reality,
Absolutely.
the reality of the entire situation is that both sides are trying to chip away at your freedom, just from different sides of the stone.
Exactly. Exactly. What we're going to face at the end ultimately is a decision, and I think one of the things that's difficult is for people to understand that there's a high probability that this is not going to end up clean. And we've seen this already from what's happened in Minnesota, where we're just going to go and vote and things are going to be peachy clean again. It's just not going to happen. And I just think people fail to understand that. I think what people are doing is going, oh, man, what happened in Minnesota is horrible, but well, somebody else will be fighting in the streets for that. It's not going to be me. And I hate to tell you, but it's probably going to end up being you.
Dude, that's crazy. I want to go through all of our clips and find how many times I say, me and my wife were just talking about that. Dude, me and my wife were literally just fucking talking about that.
Yep. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. This is a
go.
No, I'm just saying it's a stark reality if you have any awareness, awareness of, did I just make up a word, awareness? But anyway, I'm hip hop, y'all, so I make up words all the time. I'm just letting y'all know. If you have any awareness of what's going on in our political, space, you will come to that conclusion, and because it's very noticeable. And the problem is that when I go into spaces as a black male and they be left leaning, the majority of the people in the room are classified as white most of the time in these bigger spaces that have more resources. And their issues are not my issues. Like, some of them are, but most of them are not. Most of them are just want to form a union and go about their business and just equal pay.
So
they're not concerned with us.
Here's the way I see that, right? In spaces like that, the issues that we have in common with those people, we also, whether or not the people outside of those spaces want to admit it, we have in common with them. It's a commonality amongst all Americans, right? Healthcare reform, police reform, things like that. Even people who are not necessarily for it would benefit from it. So that's kind of like a nationwide issue. But then walking into those spaces, myself separately, we bring in other things that we deal with in our realities that those people are unaware would be too generous of a term, uncaring of.
Point. I like that. They just don't care. And I think that's a big part of the problem, because let's talk about, and I don't want to go too far off, folks, but and In The Cypher Podcast, if you can, hit that like button, share, subscribe. If we talk a bit about the woman that was killed in Minnesota, and we could cover this a little bit right here, is that the outrage is the fact that this is a white woman. Because the reality of the situation, it's never sparked outrage until a white woman, something is done to her. Now, we can say that the George Floyd thing was outrage. There was outrage there in that space, but there were a multitude of things that actually made that the way it was. One was obviously the pandemic, people being home, nothing to really focus in on, nothing really going on. And then something like this happens. And I don't know if the outrage on George Floyd was really and truly genuine. I don't think it was, because obviously that energy dissipated so fast as well as it came.
I feel like, I don't want to interrupt you. I don't disagree with you.
Go ahead.
I feel like a lot of the outpouring you saw surrounding George Floyd was driven by social media. Now, I'm not saying bots. I'm not saying anything nefarious. I think it just seemed so encompassing because it hit the algorithm. And that's the thing with algorithms nowadays. They build these digital bubbles for us to live in.
Correct.
I just posted on my personal Facebook the other day. It's probably like a 10, 15-minute video of essentially confessions of former MAGA followers. But what I said, my little blurb on the top was, some of y'all need to give your algorithms a colonic, because I know if I go into my personal social media profile versus our podcast profile, my algorithms are very different. I see stuff in my personal one that because we haven't had our podcast accounts set up for very long and we're very focused in what we're doing on those accounts, I see certain content. But in mine, because of the friends that I have and because of certain things that I follow, my algorithm is flooded with right-wing shit. Fucking flooded, bro. And it's like,
That's good.
if you pay attention, you can figure out which of the quote unquote social media influencers are actually political influencers.
I think so too.
There's a lot of them
I
too.
think so too. A lot of them. And in the Cypher Podcast, like, share, subscribe. Great point. One of the things I'm leery of, and going back, I'm dialing back a little bit in regards to the George Floyd thing. One of the things that I think people missed was the outrage was more about the fact that this was happening on camera, live on the street in front of a bunch of people.
That's what I mean. Dude,
Yeah.
not only was the video on social media, but then because the way social media functions, the organic supporters start getting trolled by the actual, the organic trolls. And it just builds this fervor where it eventually, because of the way algorithms works, finds its way into your feed.
Mhm.
You don't even have to be political, dude. You could be completely apolitical. And because churches started picking it up and religious people started talking about it in their feeds, it winds up in your feed.
Now, I'm going to go even a little bigger, though. What I'm saying is the outrage was the fact that it was happening. But one of the things that people don't understand is because it was coming from America, the so-called land of the free, brave, and all these other things, and they market that out to the general world, that image spread across the world. And that's what sparked the outrage, because white people were like, hey, we like our racism, but not like that. I mean, take them in an alleyway at least before you do that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Look, that's what happened. That's what happened in the 50s or 60s when we started getting national television broadcasts. People in the North started seeing people in the South being brutalized, right? The economic mistreatment and the inequalities in society, those were cool because we could put a little curtain over that and everybody didn't have to see it. But once the shit was on TV, it was more of an embarrassment to the United States.
Exactly. So their proclamation made them look ridiculous to Russia, to Europe as well, but China, all these other countries that were in opposition, Cuba.
That was one of the tactics I know for sure in Vietnam and Korea. And I want to say even as far back as World War II, opposition forces, the Russians, the Viet Cong, they would propagandize minority, especially Black and Afro-Latino soldiers, and just point out that you're fighting a war for a system that treats you like shit.
Well, of course. Which is
why I think the idea of communism, or I don't want to say socialism, but most definitely communism and Marxism, was appealing to minorities, especially Black and Afro-Latino minorities, because it was a system that at least was propagandized as true equality between man. Even though it's not.
No, they have, it suffers issues just like everything else, but we're going to get into that a little bit, and I'm glad you touched on that, especially socialism. And this is going to lead to some of the questions people have about answer some of the questions people have about Venezuela, because there's a ton of reasons why things are transpiring the way they are, and I'm a little bit leery about Trump saying it's about the oil, because anything they tell us, I don't know if we should believe them wholeheartedly. I think we should take it with a grain of salt.
Well, I don't
think he's even being honest.
First of all, the oil executives that he met with, side note, in the middle of the fucking meeting with the oil executives, who, whatever you think about them, they're some of the most successful men, because it was all men, some of the most successful men on earth. This fucking retard got up.
Rubio.
No, forget about Rubio. I heard about the note. Okay. I didn't even hear what he said in the note. But the jackass got up, walked over to the window, looked out the window, and started talking about fucking Christmas.
Yeah, he's a little off, bro.
Dude, a little.
He's. I'm telling you, dementia.
Bro,
is
fucking
on the way.
Biden slurred his words, and I mean, he was off base a few times. I'm not going to try to cover for him.
Yeah,
but they were running around talking about the democracy has been overthrown.
Yeah,
countries being run by unelected leaders.
Yeah, this guy's problematic because he's definitely he's on the decline and it's fast. But circling back on the actual eruptive phase, and part of the reason why I
Yes.
brought up the George Floyd thing was because of that eruption during that time frame. And political pundits, the media didn't have anything to really control it. And they weren't going to. And to some degree, I guess it was a controlled kind of eruption. It didn't spill over to the point where cities were being burnt down like the Red Summer
If
or
you
anything like that.
listen to MAGA talk, Minneapolis was razed to the ground.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the skill sets that they've mastered as far as blurring the lines of truth and reality.
Well. One of the
Um,
skill sets they've mastered also is false flags inside of actual events. And if anyone's not clear what I'm talking about, I'll give you two examples. One from George Floyd and one from I think yesterday or the day before with the woman who was murdered up in Minneapolis.
correct.
In George Floyd, there was the fire at the AutoZone, which was set by what they call, if you look online, search for the Umbrella Man, they identified him finally, but he was a white nationalist. And his purpose in starting the fire in the AutoZone was to turn around and be like, oh, look what the niggers did.
Of course.
Which
of
if you
course.
go online, dude, if you go on any kind of right-wing space and ask about that, that's what they're going to tell you. Oh, that was all black people.
Yeah, yeah. That's a complicated, not complicated, but that's a tough space. And I say complicated, I should say it because there's an argument with the left as far as, this is about capitalism, this is about class, and that's where we're having the issue. But then the other side of the left, or next to the left, or in the space, are non-white people, and we're going, nah, it's actually about race because everybody that's being put down tends to look like us, and we're the majority getting pushed down. It's not like all of us are being able to funnel to the elite, and none of us are actually in the elite. We're just, if you're Michael Jordan, if you're Oprah Winfrey, or anybody of that nature, somebody allowed you
Yeah,
to
and
do what you're
somebody
doing.
is eliter than you.
Yeah, yeah. That's just what it is. So it's something to take in mind. In this space right now, I do see that what she mentioned about that release valve as something that we really need to pay attention to and understand that when some of these so-called leaders are speaking, is that they'll say things just to say them, just to put a word out to show. And Cory Booker does this as well. He's another politician that really is good at that, where he'll act like he's upset and fuming mad, but it's a way to get the people to go, see, he's fighting for us, and then we relax and fall back down,
Yeah,
fall back into our
all
space.
that rage and fomented anger doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
We don't get any
doesn't.
results from it.
Yeah, and it's nothing at the end of the day. And one of the things that to be mindful of is that, and this is something we'll talk about in another conversation, folks, is the media pushing the images of what quote unquote one like self-proclaimed heroes. And I mean this in media as far as movies, where if you watch Star Wars, you watch Lord of the Rings, all these things, it's always this one person that's the hero that's guiding the way.
And that's
And
where
that
we were going before, is that they have us waiting for someone to save us.
Exactly, exactly. Instead of developing our own systems and our own infrastructure to actually counter the bullshit.
Mhm.
Because in Italy on the docks, they actually stopped working for the companies that I believe are shipping weapons to Israel. They just stopped, and people can go look this up when you get a chance. But I think that's the pushback that we need to have. But that comes with education, that comes with a level of courage that I don't think everybody necessarily has at this point in juncture.
Yeah, but we also have a fear incentive in a lot of cases, and we can look. Biden himself did this, so if anybody wants the both sides an issue, we've made it
Right.
harder and harder for the workers who actually matter, whose labor can affect change. We've made it harder for them to strike, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I remember it had to be at least 10 years ago in New York, Verizon workers wanted to go on strike, and the city was hell of against that. And then they started trying to build some solidarity with non-unionized IT workers. And then immediately New York City put the kebab on that.
Shut it
You know?
down.
Dude,
Shut
down
it
here in
down.
Florida, I almost got stuck in Florida. When I was down here before COVID, I had to go back up to New York about 3 or 4 days before they wound up closing everything down in New York. And within a day or two of that, Florida made all IT workers essential workers and essentially made it, I don't want to say illegal, but definitely civilly wrong in civil matters, wrong for you to stay home for health reasons related to COVID. And the place that I was working, I was working at a place that did IT work for Tampa General Hospital. If anybody out there works in MSPs, you know, you wind up getting a lot of these doctors' clinics, things like that. So I had a lot of that down here as clientele. I probably would have gotten freaking sick with COVID.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. It's good. It's a great thing that you avoided that as well, by the way.
Dude, I dodged
But this
a
is
bullet.
yeah, yeah. And this is now like, and I'm gonna bring it back to, this is now one of the things that I do think about in this controlled phase or release valve. Like I said, I call it eruptive phase. How much else do they control? Because if when they come on stage and they tell us to calm down, basically in a nutshell, or say they did something, what else, whatever dynamics are they controlling? Because we know they control social media, but what else? You know what I mean? Are wages being suppressed to the point that obviously we can't revolt because we can't save up enough money to spend time to be out on the streets?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a simple
You
answer.
understand what I'm saying?
That's a simple answer. The federal minimum wage is still 7 something, right?
Exactly.
And anyone who
Exactly.
wants to say driving up the minimum wage doesn't affect anyone, that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit, because when the guy flipping
If
burgers,
it don't, then why don't you bring it up?
I remember when they were doing when New York raised the minimum wage and a bunch of other states did it, they were trying to make the correlation to fast food workers getting paid similar to what EMTs get paid. Okay, it's not the McDonald's workers' fault that the EMT service pays their people shit. Right. And if an EMT worker knows I can get a better paycheck at McDonald's, it's going to be harder for you to fill those jobs. It's going to force you to raise your pay.
There you go.
Right. So it does work.
I like it, man. I like it. 110%, bro. So let's dip on to the next one, y'all. Like, share, subscribe in the Cypher Podcast. Let's go to that next clip.
So do I think it is better than, let's say, compared to Hakeem Jeffries' statement, which is largely emblematic of what Democrats have been saying, which is that this guy is bad news and Trump did it illegally, but maybe he should have done it. I mean, let me just read it because it's not fair for me to characterize it. Here's Hakeem Jeffries. He says, Nicolas Maduro is a criminal and an authoritarian dictator who has oppressed the people of Venezuela for years. He is not the legitimate head of government. Undoubtedly, the rule of law and democracy have broken down in Venezuela, and the people of that country deserve better. Donald Trump has the constitutional responsibility to follow the law and protect democratic norms in the United States. That is what putting America first requires. The Trump administration has not sought congressional authorization for the use of military force and has failed to properly notify Congress in advance of the operation in Venezuela. The promotion of security and stability in a region requires more than just military force, as we painfully observed in Iraq and Afghanistan. It goes on, but you get the gist.
There's something that we're not, and we're going to get to this later on in this clip, and there's more that is not being expressed, but that comment compared to, obviously, you know, Zoran's is horrible. Like, Zoran's at least has the pushback, but Zoran also has the pushback. I'm 110% believes he should push back because Maduro's going to be here with his wife. He's going to be in New York City. So he's like, yo, why are you could have told me this before you did it, so I know that even this is even happening and that I have to speak to my constituents about this so that I'm prepped. Now I'm in a awkward position. You know what I'm saying? Now, Hakeem Jeffries also not briefed and not told. Also, Chuck Schumer not briefed and not told. But I think in regards to them, it's a little bit more complicated. And I think it has a lot more to do with their donors and people that are actually financing them on other ends. People that they can actually tell, like, hey, look, we're going to be taking over Venezuela. You might want to invest in, you feel me?
Oh, you're saying that their concern wasn't so much the unconstitutionality of the action. It's the fact that they missed out on an opportunity.
Damn right.
And they're probably getting pressure from their donors now for having missed out on said opportunity. Now, the only reason I don't think that's the case is because the major donors that we'd be talking about, they all come from a certain part of the world.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
and and
Go
and
ahead.
and I'm not just talking about Israel, because Saudi Arabia is over there too.
Right.
But the big money donors, because that's where the big money donations come from, they are probably unhappy with the fact that they missed out on this. Now, I don't think they missed out on it, because those donors also have their hands in the pockets of the other side.
Agreed. 110%. I think that plays a major role in this. I don't think Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer are, I don't know how long they're going to stay.
I don't think
Like, I
they're
know
long
Chuck
for this
Schumer.
world. I'll make a bold beginning of the year prediction here, but I think you're going to see a lot of candidates, successful candidates. I don't want to say against Israel, but definitely standing independent of Israel.
I think you have a point. I don't see any people that are standing with Israel, actually getting finance from Israel, lasting long in this
Well,
quote
I think
unquote political environment.
I think the surprise wins we see, or the unexpected wins we see in the 2026 midterms, are going to come maybe not necessarily due to the winner being anti-Israel, but because the loser was pro-Israel. And that person that
Yeah.
beat them made it a point to say, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to play a major role. One of the things that is going to be difficult is for those people, those constituents, is to make sure they basically separate themselves from the quote unquote like anti-Semitism box.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, make sure that they let people know, like, hey, look, I'm pro-Jewish, but I'm not pro-Zion, like that Zionist. And that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
big
Well, look,
difference.
I'm pro-Christian. I am Christian, but I'm not pro-Christian nationalist,
There you go.
right?
There you go.
And I think your man Zoran actually he took a big step in clarifying, unblurring that line. Adams, because we know where Adams was getting a lot of his money from, he went along with a bunch of other Republican governors, and my governor's one of them, and mayors around the country, that made it declared that speaking out against Israel, the country and the government that runs Israel, or any of their elected officials, was akin to anti-Semitism.
Yeah, straight up crime. Trying to make it a straight
And
up crime.
Zoran, that's
Utterly.
on his first day in office, he negated all mayoral executive orders from sometime in the middle or beginning of 2024. Everything before that, they worked on, they looked at, but all those Adams ones that he passed that were really pro-Israel and pro-corporate, he got rid of all of them.
Oh, that's excellent. And that's great, folks. I think you should all check that out too. I think if your quote unquote senator, congressman, or woman is not doing something along those lines, you already know what you got to do.
No, and dude,
You could.
I've done a few of these when I was back in New York. I did a few of these town hall type meetings, or meet your representative type meetings. And I'm not advocating to go up in there and make an ass out of yourself, but we've got to start asking these people, where do you stand on Palestine? And I'm not some fucking wild pro-Palestine. Honestly, my view on Palestine changed post October 7th.
Mhm.
If you would have asked me prior to October 7th, and maybe for some time just after October 7th, had you asked me, I would have been pro-Israel. I've had arguments with my cousin on this, but
Interesting.
they've done everything that they could to make me not be pro-Israel anymore. And I was
Understood.
when I say I was pro-Israel, I wasn't, swinging the flag for Israel, but I guess maybe in my good bad scale, they were a little bit lighter than fucking Palestine. But when I step back and look at it, I understand, because I wasn't so focused on their politics and I was more on mine, that they're running the same game that we ran, that Germany modeled itself on when the Nazis took over, and now they're the new iteration of it. Because I don't know how many people out there know this, but what Germany did to the Jews in World War II, a lot of it was modeled after, and some of it was even considered too extreme for the Nazis, but it was modeled after what was done to blacks in the South.
Correct.
And
so
even the
basically,
Nazis
that's what
thought
they
that-
did with apartheid.
Yes, well, apartheid was another, 0.3 version.
Yeah, it's another iteration.
Well, and you also have to remember, Elon Musk's family is proof of this. A lot of the Nazis that left Germany that didn't go to South America went to South Africa.
Of course, that's where they felt the most comfortable.
Mhm. And that's where they were openly themselves the longest after, like flaunting what they were for the longest after.
Right, right. This is indicative of what is, what some of the issues are and what we're going to have to deal with when it comes to the pushback, because the pushback is going to be real. I don't
Well,
think these people are going to
if you
roll over.
No, you're right. The pushback is going to be real, but we have to take a page out of Germany's playbook, because they did this very specifically because they saw that the United States didn't bury the Confederacy, right? There was that period of time where the North was essentially adopting shit that the South wanted just so that we could be at peace. And
We're still doing that.
well, yeah, and we're still doing it. But I guess more specifically, I'm being very general there. More specifically, we didn't prosecute the treason that was the Confederacy, right? We didn't prosecute
Absolutely.
it.
That is
And
correct.
because we didn't, we allowed it to fester. Germany saw that, and they made sure that they didn't do that. And I don't want to say Germany made sure. We, the United States and the larger NATO and UN world bodies, well, the UN wasn't around then, and NATO comes after that. But the larger world bodies made sure that Germany was held, and the leaders that they were able to find were held responsible. And that's why
We're
Germany...
held accountable.
What was that?
Yeah, they were held accountable. Some of the leaders,
the ones they
held
were able to
accountable.
get
Most
their
of them-
hands on. Like I said, lots and lots.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the higher ranked ones were the ones that got out of Dodge, but lots and lots of them did get out of Germany and out of Europe. But the ones that they were able to get, we had the Nuremberg trials for.
Right.
All that to say, that's the only way that we fix this. And I'm not saying that we need to maliciously prosecute anyone who supported, but if crimes were committed, they need to be adjudicated.
Yeah.
If you don't believe
And
me, we just went through January 6th 5 years ago, and none of that.
And we're gonna
Good?
and we're gonna have more a bigger conversation on that too. Like, share, subscribe, folks, in the Cypher Podcast. That, I think, is a great point. And one of the things also I mentioned is Operation Paperclip. That was a big part of German scientists being brought over here to work in NASA. Yeah, so that's another one for folks to go poke in and look into. You want to roll to the next one? We got this other one,
Yes, sir.
and I think it's this one is pretty. Leans into what some of the things we're talking about.
Venezuela, which has a very robust electoral mechanism and has for many years. When you vote, there's like a ticket. It's called an acta there. It's basically just like, and actually, if people have done electronic voting machines in the US, you know them. It just basically like prints out a ticket to say who you voted for or whatever. And so in the context of the election that took place, the last election in Venezuela, there was a dispute over whether or not the tickets that the opposition, led by Marina Corina Machado and the candidate she was backing, Edmundo Gonzalez, whether or not their allegation that the tickets that they had from voters proved that the election had been stolen, and that the announcement by the National Electoral Commission that Maduro had won the election was thus falsified. So then what happens is there becomes a big multi-week debate over the actas, as it was called. And the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, which is the party that Maduro is the candidate of, presents their actas. And they say, no, we have our evidence, or, well, they have their evidence. They submit it to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court comes out and says, we're going to adjudicate us. So they say, we're going to submit our evidence. There's other opposition parties that participated in the election that, by the way, don't agree with this same framing that's coming from Maria Corina Machado, even though they're against Maduro. They say, okay, fine, we're going to present our evidence in the context of the actas. Then you have the opposition led by Maria Corina Machado, who says, we are not going to participate in this process. We do not view the Supreme Court as legitimate, and thus our totally unverified claims about these pieces of paper that we allege are coming from voters and that we allege are 100% correct, even though people have pointed out some problems with what we've presented in terms of our pictures of these pieces of paper, that we are right and you must accept that. So in a narrow sense, you could argue that there was a disputed election. Like, there is certainly two different sides of an opinion, but there is one side that is backed by all of the legal structures of Venezuela, the ruling party, and that was accepted by the majority of opposition parties that participated in the election. And then there's another narrative by people who refuse to participate in any process, refuse to provide any sort of independent verification, and that, quite frankly, when you look at that wing of the opposition in Venezuela, has consistently made false claims about elections, had their own extremely dodgy electoral processes, particularly in primaries, and that openly has advocated for military overthrow, violence in the streets in many different times after elections, and other things that should cast serious doubt on, I think, their claims.
Now I see why Trump likes her so much. So I wasn't honestly, I wasn't honestly aware of that. I knew that there was a disputed election. I knew that there was someone that was claiming to have won the election, who was the person that was supported by Machado. I'd like to also point out that Machado dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, to which she at least must have thought she would get the presidency for.
She thought she was
she thought she was going to be a shoo-in. But Trump, like he does with all women, said that she was, not good enough to do the job.
You're not qualified.
Not qualified. But he allowed, and I do mean he allowed, because he called the shots on this. He allowed the vice president of Venezuela to assume the presidency because she's just as fucking corrupt as Nicolas Maduro was. She's just in his pocket and not in his, Maduro was in his own pocket. She's willing to be in Trump's pocket just to keep power.
So what do you think about the actual debate about the election and the fact that the other side wasn't sure? So let me
put my conspiracy theory hat on. Let me put on my aluminum foil hat real quick. I don't know if you recall when the whole stolen election thing came up, they said that the quote, I think somebody said it was Chavez, but they meant it was Maduro that had stolen, that Maduro had stolen the election. Now knowing that Machado her party has been known for calling stolen elections, and the implication from MAGA that Venezuela was involved in stealing the Joe Biden election, that's why they want her on their side. They're going to try to reinforce the narrative that Biden stole the election with her and her party as proof, even though in their own country, they're seen to be as whacked out as the election deniers here.
Yeah, they definitely seem to be like that. My thing is, what I'm concerned about is how true is what they're saying, really is, as far as what is the truth when it comes to the actual election itself.
So,
and I'm curious who was really going to win that, because the person I heard that actually won, he had to scapegoat and run away to Spain, I believe, or it was Portugal.
But I think that's
mistaken.
The person that Machado, because she's also in exile.
Yes.
So it's the person that Machado supports. So that's who, when this all happened, I was asking if Trump's goal is, to overthrow this dictator, why not put in the person who now I know is claiming that they actually won, right?
Right.
Then.
But the other thing, too, is that there's a dynamic here, unfortunately, and it also goes back to Hugo Chavez, that's about race, which is the resources, like Maduro doesn't look like a white guy. Like, he is not.
Hell no, that's some definitely some indigenous blood, and there's definitely some African in there.
Yeah, all the way. And I think that's part of the issue there too. And I think it's going to play a role in other people being elected. But
so I don't know if I'll definitely say that is some of the motivation in the alliances you're looking at, where Machado's team and I'm sure if we take a look at some of the members of her party, they'll look extremely Castilian.
Yeah.
Very conquistadorish.
It's 110% true. And that's one of the things that we have to actually address and kind of think about is how much does race play a role? Because I do believe that one of the things that that Hugo Chavez was actually trying to do was actually funnel money into the people's hands so they actually have more control.
You said who? Maduro or Chavez?
Hugo Chavez.
So, and just so that we're clear, so that the audience has a good idea of what's going on here, I'm not saying that Hugo Chavez was loved, but the people were happier with their form of government and the way it operated under Hugo Chavez, who was an idealist. He might not have been your idea of a good leader, but he was an idealist leader, and his idealism was socialism. Maduro's a thug.
So
Maduro's a thug. Maduro
gangster
came up in the military that helped the drug cartels get their drugs out. And that's who.
By the
Go
way,
ahead, go ahead.
speaking of drugs out, there's a there's another story. There's an article out, and I think people should check this out also by Christopher Hedgeson. It's not by him, sorry, it's a podcast by him having a discussion with, I believe, a journalist that had done reporting on Marco Rubio's connection to the quote unquote international drug rings, especially the ones mainly in Latin America, and how he's been connected to them since he was like 12 years old.
Rubio?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's an incredible story.
Son.
I'll share it with you when I get a chance.
Yeah.
But let's dive back into this. You want to, because I'm pretty much done with that one. This part coming up, I think is my part that that really struck a nerve. And this is you know, the reps and Dems and the issues of the social party. Go ahead.
You cannot argue that the Maria Corina Machado thing is like so set in stone that we should say that Maduro is like a dictator who's illegitimate, who's done this, who's done all these other things. And I think that's important because everything that is relevant about international law and other pieces that actually kind of exist slightly outside of this, that all the things that I think are very relevant about whether or not, whatever you think about Maduro, this is the way to resolve any problem, that's also important. And that's something that has been mentioned by many Democrats. But I think when you start with a framing that is actually just like not true, it speaks to the deeper ideological problems that the Democrats, as well as the Republicans, do not like socialist governments in anywhere in the world that redistribute wealth and power to poor and working class people. And just like Obama was the one who escalated the sanctions against Venezuela that crippled the economy and created many of the problems that people talk about now, Biden, Trump, all of them have continued in that vein. And I think Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, all these other people, Chuck Schumer, who said his only demand of Trump is that he wanted to be briefed.
My only demand from Trump is I want to be briefed. I want my seat.
Yes. I don't care what we plunder and who we kill. I just want my seat at the table.
And to what he was saying, I think Western governments have a vested interest in making sure not just socialism, but all forms of non-Western civilization approved governments fail.
Mm-hmm. But now why do they fail? That's the other thing, right?
Well, no, when I say they have a vested interest, I mean that they invest in the failure. They want it to fail, therefore they do things, and by things I mean, overthrow fucking governments.
Yeah.
They do things or destabilize governments or destabilize regions, but they do things to make sure that those forms of government do fail. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I am pro or anti. I'm not a Libyan. It's not really my place to be either. But a lot of Libyans and by proxy, a lot of Africans were very happy with Muammar Gaddafi. Obviously, some weren't. And I'm sure, everyone's hero is someone else's villain. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who can speak to why we shouldn't speak highly of Muammar Gaddafi. But the power vacuum that was created afterwards, the only people that benefit from that, not even the people that fill the vacuum immediately, it's Western governments. And when I say Western governments, I will expand that to corporations, because through those Western governments, those corporations get their foothold.
Right. This is a big statement that he made here. And I think one of the things, and by the way, this gentleman is Eugene Pure, or I'm saying his name absolutely wrong. Pure, that's it. He's really hitting a point, and that's a very important thing. It's not just the fact that it's a socialist movement that the Americas are concerned about. It's really, or United States is concerned about, it's really about the fact that the wealth is being redistributed, and it's being redistributed to people that don't look like them, which will give them more power in the world space.
Well,
and they can't have that.
So I'll dig just a little bit deeper on that. I don't want to just say that it's people that don't look like them. It's people who are not going to take that money and reinvest it in the shell game. That money is going to go to those people in those countries, and they're going to do what they need to do to rebuild their homes, their villages, their towns, and their country. And that's not as profitable to big business, Western governments, as corporations getting that money, bringing that wealth back to the Western countries, and then enriching those systems in the Western countries.
Right. This is a big thing that I think he points out, is the fact that it's bipartisan.
Oh yes, it's bipartisan. after this whole Venezuela thing is done, they'll find a way to agree on how we extract the minerals, because the oil will get extracted. In that meeting that you were talking about with that we were talking about with the oil executives, one of the oil executives tells Trump they pulled out in 2019 because of his sanctions. They're not really super interested in that oil right now because they know it's going to be a lot of back and forth. If that climate changes, they will be very interested in that money. I mean, that oil.
I don't think that I don't know how much they're going to be taking out right now, because the analysis that I've heard from people that are in the field in the oil business,
It's not good oil.
they say it's not like it's bad oil. It's just the fact that it's harder to get out and it's thicker. It's not loose as the oil that we're getting from Canada and elsewhere. So, and we still produce more oil, by the way, folks, than most other people. We're an oil junkie country. So Canada right now is who most oil companies are doing their business with. And from what I'm understanding, the amount of effort that it would take for an oil company to go down to Venezuela, clear out the land, because you have to clear out the land and then build, I believe, these hydro tanks or machines that would actually extract the oil. And then the oil is going to be difficult to take out, so it's going to take more energy and more time to take it out. It's almost not profitable for these oil companies. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not denying that the oil is not important, but this is why I circle back to say the fact that Trump and all the other cronies up there were saying, well, yeah, we're there for the oil. The fact that they're coming out.
Yeah. If they're telling you they're there for the oil, they're there for more than just the oil, or something is more important than the oil.
Is more and more important than the oil, 110%. So that's where my mind is at with this, is what direction is it going to go? Because I've had other pundits, not pundits, but I guess they are political pundits from the Atlantic and other magazines and journalists that I follow. And they're saying it's not about the oil. It's just about, getting in there and getting him out. And I'm just like, nah, that doesn't make sense either.
No,
I'm saying that it's more of a situation that they're trying to get control of all the Americans.
Yes. Okay. That's
possible.
what I was about to say. I was going to say what the play that I see going on right now is they're trying to shore up that crest of the Caribbean, because while the oil in Venezuela might not be the end goal, securing the oil flow out of the Americas, out of the United States and Canada, is the goal. They need to make sure. And if you think about it, if China or if Russia or even if Venezuela decides to do it on their own, the majority of oil production is done just north of Venezuela in Texas. If they make that difficult for us to get our oil out, and we can all sit here and fucking glaze the U.S. military and how great they are, it would still cause a disruption in the flow of oil. Whether or not Venezuela is eventually successful in stopping the flow, that's a different story. But any skirmishes in the Caribbean or in the Gulf will cause problems for the delivery and production of that oil. And that's what America is trying to ensure doesn't happen. Like it or not, the best way to ensure that is to make sure that all of the border, and, there's water between them, but it is the final landmass between point A and point B. And they need to make sure that those borders are all secure. I don't necessarily agree with the way they went about doing it. That's what we have things like U.S. aid for. But, it's a security issue.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I was noticing was just the fact, and I went back to the history, and I noticed that Hugo Chavez is actually not the one that nationalized the oil. It was a gentleman in the 1970s that first nationalized it, called Carlos Andrés. He was in charge back then. And he nationalized it, but it wasn't as such a big deal for some reason. I know there's more details to this, folks. I apologize on that note. But Hugo Chavez, 110%, was the one that came in and then put another policy on top of nationalizing the oil that even put a situation where he was able to get the money, have the money go back into Venezuela, which reduced poverty up to like damn near 60%.
Yeah, bro.
And then after that, he started to set up some groups in the community that would allow people to do some type of, or have some type of power in their manufacturing. If they did shoes, if they did hats, gloves, whatever it was that they were making, any kind of thing, that they would actually start to empower themselves within the community. So the actual government or the country would be run more from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
And that, unfortunately, was what drew the last straw. And we had our man Obama come in and slap the sanctions on. And
Mm-hmm.
now, till this day, there are a lot of people that immigrated from Venezuela, and they are all over the place, including Trinidad Tobago.
Well,
There are a lot of Venezuelan people over
the
there, by
thing
the
that
way.
kills me, especially about, I mean, yes, there was a big influx of specifically Venezuelans under Obama. I don't know how much I need to explain that Obama was not a liberal to people, but I mean,
True.
look, I voted for him twice. I was just trying to give my daughter pointers the other day on public speaking, and I told her, if you ever want to look at a good public speaker who uses a lot, Obama's one of the best ever. I definitely admire the man, but he was a Republican light. I mean, he was the better choice than fucking Mitt Romney's, right? He wasn't. He definitely wasn't no fucking Fiorella LaGuardia or nothing. LaGuardia. So
No. And the thing is, right, in context, this is where history plays such an important role, like you're saying right here, which is in the past, this party that we know now that we classify as the Democratic Party, this would be the Republican Party of the 80s and 90s. This is what the Republican Party was like.
Yep.
110%. Now, things have gotten a little bit out of hand, not a little bit, they've gotten pretty much out of hand to the point now the Republican Party is just like basically a fascist regime.
Dude, the
and like
Republican
almost
Party
neo-Nazi
is
like.
running a publicly admitted Nazi down here in Florida, and another one in Florida running is the fucking jackass that broke into the Capitol building and walked away with the rotunda, the podium. That fucking jabroni's running for office down here. And then from the same event, the shaman, the fucking dude with the elk skin or whatever the fuck he was wearing, he's running out in Arizona. He's also now no longer MAGA.
Really?
Yeah, bro. I told you I was watching this video. There's a lot of, but it always comes down to shit. This thing I voted for affected me and I didn't realize it. It's literally, I have yet to see one of them where their moment of clarity involved what was happening to someone else.
It's unfortunate, but I do think that if it makes any sense, it does make a lot of sense in this instance, which is the woman being shot. And the fact that it's a white woman is where their relationship comes in, because every white man has a white mother.
Because all these white women now, they saw this happen to her and they said, oh, shit, my life don't mean shit
That
either.
could be me. Yeah, that could be me. And that's the part that is triggering to most of them, and that's why they're out on the street protesting and doing whatever. But I don't even think they're going to do too much, because she isn't, I'll just be honest, she isn't like this gorgeous, drop dead, beautiful, blonde hair, blue-eyed white woman. If she was that, if she was anything like that, it would be complete disaster in the streets right now, because everybody would be up in there. Well, not everybody, not me.
Let me tell you, if
a lot of people would be up in arms.
You want to know what would have happened if she was what you just described? The right would have found a way to adopt her by blaming her actions on her gay lover. I swear to
That's possible,
bro. Them motherfuckers, they don't love nothing more than a fucking hurt white woman, a hurt blonde hair, blue-eyed white woman.
Yep. It's possible. I completely agree. It's more than doable for them. Because to be honest, I was kind of concerned, but I then realized, wait a minute, this is a white woman that is a lesbian. Oh, she's not going to get that much love. She's not going to get that much love. She's going to get it, and people is tripping, but they're not going to get that much love. And one of the women that I follow her podcast from time to time, is Heather Cox. She basically announced this week that we are now under fascism. And I'm like, where have you been in these last couple months?
Where have you been since
I don't know where
almost exactly a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always viewed it as fascism just from the way I grew up, and I saw how I was treated as a non-white male. I was always wondering, like, why am I treated so different? Why am I? And then I started to see, when I went to other neighborhoods, like, oh, all of us are getting treated like this. When I was in Sunset, it was like that. Yep. When I was in Brownsville, it was like that. I was like, oh, so they just do this to all the darkies. They don't like,
And I told my man this the other day, when they don't got darkies to do it to, they find one another to do it to. Because remember, in the 20s and 30s, the Italians were considered as low as the blacks.
Irish too.
The Irish, not
might have been lower.
Yeah, no, I was going to say
they might have been lower.
They were maybe not lower on the hierarchy scale, but they were detested more because they were seen as white niggers. They hated the Irish. And mainly one of the main reasons, and it's one of the reasons why they hate us, is because they did everything they could to, I don't want to say exterminate, but bring the Irish under thumb, and they fought and they didn't stop fighting. I mean, it's only in recent history where those hostilities have ceased or at least tamped down. Yeah. But it's what they hate. Yeah. It's what they hate about Afrocentric people whose origin can be drawn back to the islands and further back to Africa. They've done everything they could to hold us down, to shit on us, to stop us. And not only haven't they, but they haven't broken us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big part that's in the Cypher Podcast, folks. Like, share, subscribe. I think that's a big part that we have to take knowledge of. And it's a good thing, man. It's a good thing that we have that strength and that backbone, and it's keep pushing us forward.
You know what must burn them? You know what must burn them is that they gave us one of our strongest weapons. Well, maybe not weapons, but one of our strongest crutches, because they gave us Christianity. And how much has that gift slapped them back in the face when it's, whatever you think about the religion itself, it has been what has held this group of people together from time at certain points in history, right? The black slaves who were given that religion, it was forced on them, used it to fortify themselves, to strengthen themselves through those struggles. And these white people must look at it like, what did we fucking do?
Yeah, some of them must look back at it and wonder why they did it that way. I look at it and I realize like it's been past due time to let the religion go. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. I'm not telling anybody else what to do, but I just think Carl Sagan,
the religious practice, the way the groups that promote Christianity, I think is more than a few of them that we've outgrown the usefulness of. I will say that I'm a follower of Christ, but not in the way that your average Christian would follow Jesus. I think the major difference is that I don't find any value in the second half of the New Testament. And I don't mean to make this a theological podcast, but everything outside of the four gospels is just the interpretation of a Roman Jew on how best to use the life of this man to subjugate the people, right? If you take the time to read your Bible, the four gospels are the life and times of Jesus Christ, as told by the men who walked with him. But once you get past that, there are some more writings from those men, but it is mostly a back and forth between Paul, the new church, and John and the old church. And the old church was the original Christians who didn't deify Jesus. They believed in him and they followed him because the message that he brought or he brought them was revolutionary. Not to commit revolution. It was a revolutionary idea on how to live life. And that's what they followed. Leave it up to fucking Rome to find a way to take that and use it to subjugate people. I'll hop off my soapbox.
If a bad guy had to hit y'all with some religious points right there so you could roll with it. I hope y'all got something valuable from that as well, by the way, because I did. I think one of the things I wanted to check out, and I'm circling back around to what we are going to jump into next. Like, share, subscribe in the Cypher Podcast. Return of the Insurrectionists. Yeah. How you like that?
So, January 6th, they had a demonstration, protest, celebration, I don't know what the fuck they want to call it. But we are officially in 1984. We're being told by our government and by the people who empowered these people to be our government that we should not believe what we saw happen on January 6th and instead believe the narrative that they're feeding us. I know there was a statement put out by the White House or some, subpage of the White House's webpage that essentially rewrote the events of January 6th.
They are trying hard to make it seem like Trump was actually innocent and that he was the person that pardoned those 1,600 patriotic Americans persecuted for their presence at the Capitol, many mere trespassers or peaceful protesters treated as insurrectionists by a weaponized Biden DOJ. I mean, and this leads to, I mean, I'm not going to touch base on this, but I think we're going to go on to it another
Gangster,
time. The
let me ask you a
testimony that,
question. How do you hold every single level of federal power? You are the winning team in the last fucking election, and all you can fucking do is cry like bitches, bro. Every fucking thing. That's why I didn't know what to call it. It was a bitch fest. They went out there to complain, even though they were fucking let out of jail and forgiven of their crimes. And they're still out there fucking crying because it's never enough. Dude, if they were to somehow get us to acknowledge that the 2020 election was stolen and that it should have been Trump and this is really his third term or whatever fucking QAnon nonsense they believe in now, even if we do that, it won't be enough because there's going to be another gripe. And it's the reason why is because these people are disaffected. For whatever different reasons they are disaffected, they are. And they all find this solace in having someone to blame for the reasons why they are the way they are. It alleviates them of saying, wait a minute, maybe I didn't make good choices in life. Maybe I'm still working as a fucking two-rate mechanic at some bullshit shop and busting my ass at 50 is because I fucked up and I made the bad choices in life. But it's somebody
I think
else's fault.
there's even bigger layers to it because a lot of them, there were also old military people there as well, probably people that a lot of them feel disenfranchised from America, but there are also people that were there that were doing pretty well, that had the money, that flew in private jets to get there. So that's a whole nother spectrum. And it wasn't like it was just a gender thing where it was just men and women were there. So it's not that either. And that's where I say that a lot because I want people to understand white women are a big part of the problem.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be facetious and anything like that. I just think that a lot of times due to feminism, we overlook white women as if they are just innocent in this space, when in actuality, they are probably one of the most guiltiest.
Well, they are the central reason, and I can flesh this out for anyone that wants that, but they're the central reason why white supremacy is propagated, or they're at least the central figure in the propagation of it. What we were just talking about with blonde hair, blue eyed people, it doesn't matter who killed or why she was killed. It doesn't matter who, but if a darker than blonde hair, blue eyed white person kills a blonde hair, blue eyed white girl, it gets national coverage. It could be for whatever reason. Meanwhile, there are hundreds of Native American and African American and Afro-Cuban women who are raped, murdered, abducted every year, and you never hear about it.
Never hear about it.
It's out of control. I know specifically in Native American communities.
Interesting. One of the things I do think about the insurrection aspect of it is we're going to have to make a concerted effort to keep pushing the narrative and controlling the narrative, because right now that's the big problem. They do control the narrative, and because of that, they've been vigilant in trying to make sure that their vision is blurred. And it's not just like one or two people. I mean, I have people that are in my chat that text me things as well that are completely off base, off kilter, and I know it, and they've even gotten to the point where, somebody like Tim Walz is resigning. Pretty much, he's not going to run again, and he's going to basically step down because he's like, "Yo, I can't run again because they're coming after me."
Yeah.
And I think they know.
Well, that's a tactic of theirs. They did it to fucking. Also, I believe he was from Minnesota. Al Franken, dude. Al Franken. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he wasn't to blame, but it's something that they are beyond willing to accept from their own people. So they were coming. This was years before he was a senator. He was still working for Saturday Night Live, I believe. And they were coming back from one of these USO tours, and there was a female reporter on the helicopter, but she was asleep. He didn't touch her. He didn't get close to her, but he made an impolite gesture at her. And the Democrats ran him out the party because the Republicans and their mass media outlets weaponized that against them to the point where they were asking other Democrats, do you like prefixing interviews with, do you support Al Franken? Right. And
I think,
go ahead.
yeah. No, I was saying I'm going to piggyback on what you're saying a little bit, but this is definitely a tactic. It's definitely noticeable. And
Elliot Spitzer.
The thing is now,
I'm sorry.
I don't remember.
Elliot Spitzer.
I don't remember.
Mayor or governor? Governor of New York, Elliot Spitzer, again, got in trouble for doing something that they're willing to accept from other people. He was a client of the Manhattan Madam, right?
Yeah.
And there were plenty of other rich people because he didn't get rich only fucking him, right? He wasn't the sole source of her income, but nobody else got in trouble for that. Just Elliot Spitzer. Because
Right.
Elliot Spitzer,
But Tim Walz right
Elliot
now.
Spitzer, I'm sorry. Elliot Spitzer had the balls to say things like close to what Mamdani is saying. What was the blind mayor, governor in New York? That he was somewhat left-leaning, but he was more left-leaning and he wanted to go after corporations. He was talking about things like taxing trades down on Wall Street. And the moment he started talking about their money, they was like, well, you got to go.
You got to go, buddy. Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm concerned about with Tim Walz is how much, not with just him, but this is going to spread possibly to other states, and other people in Congress or Senate may even have to deal with this if they push back. And only the ones that are courageous enough are going to have the energy or the gumption to actually push back. I'm looking at things when it comes to the insurrection, though, and one of the things that I was concerned about was the Jack Smith testimony at the DOJ. And it turns out, and I dropped you a little note of video on this, there's a lot of information that he gathered that made his case very solid. And part of the reason why the case was dragging was obviously because of who was in office. And Trump never really covered his tracks, nor did the people that were actually trying to help him. So he was able to gather a lot of data in regards to the January 6th situation. And now he's laying everything out on the table. And I think the fact that he's this courageous, I got to give him credit. He must have something bulletproof, because to do this at this time.
Well, remember.
It's a little.
So the Republicans said that they wanted him to testify, right? He said, okay, not only will I testify, but let's do this in open court, in an open session, so that America can hear what I have to say. They balked. They weren't doing that. So now they made him testify behind closed doors so that they could at least manage the faucet on the information flow. The other part of that is that he wasn't able to testify about the second half of his case, which I think touches some of the bases you're talking about, because Judge Eileen Cannon down here in Florida has done everything she can to slow roll that process. Not saying that she's able to stop it, but she's able to slow roll it. And like we said earlier about your New Year's resolution and that time span from when you made it to where you are now, the further we get away from January 6th, 5 years ago, and from Jack Smith's testimony on the first part, the further away from that we get, the more blurred the line becomes, the more of it gets forgotten. So it's not as impactful when the rest of it hits.
I think you have a point. And I'm thinking they're doing the same thing. Obviously, documents were also released at the end of year for the Epstein files, which have all been very, a lot of things were redacted. Let's just say that, folks, but still enough to actually make Trump and other quote unquote politicians and non-politicians guilty.
So we didn't get to touch base on this, since you mentioned about the release of the files and the redaction. We're lucky that we've got the Keystone Cops of corruption. We are lucky because the only reason a lot of the first batch was made sense of was because of the software that they use to redact is licensed. They use Adobe PDF. And earlier this year, in his billionaire knowledge, Elon Musk's Doge cut off all of their Adobe product licenses. And because the software was no longer licensed and that PDF was created with now unlicensed software, the redactions couldn't be saved. So all you had to do is copy and paste it into a plain text editor. The Keystone Cops of fucking corruption, baby. I'm going to make that into a fucking baseball jersey.
Yeah, I think this is going to get interesting more and more as we go along. What I'm thinking now, though, is, with the people that are free, these insurrectionists coming out there, and just the audacity of how much damage they did, people that died and people that died after due to the stress and, unfortunately unalive themselves even. It's just utterly ridiculous, man. And I don't think people understand how much this is going to go down in history. Looking at it now, to me, it just feels like it was last year. It doesn't even feel like it was so long ago.
Dude, I
like
remember
damn
I
near
was still in
5
New York.
years.
I remember, well, first of all, and I don't mean to whine, but for me specifically, it was I'll never forget it because I'm Puerto Rican and we celebrate Three Kings Day, the Epiphany. And for my family, that's a big day. We give out more gifts on, as if Christmas wasn't enough. We give out another, not a whole set of gifts, but we give out gifts on Three Kings Day. So for us, we celebrate. We have dinner. It's a whole thing. And this happened on that day. So now every year when I celebrate something that's, important in my family, it's scarred by the memory of this bullshit. And dude, I remember sitting there. And first seeing it on my computer. I was working in the Bronx though. I was home. I was in the basement, but I had my TV right next to me. So I would keep CNN or MSNBC on the TV on mute. But on my computer in my fucking Twitter timeline, I started seeing what was going on. So I switched my TV over to a secondary monitor for my computer, bought up Twitch, and then I was watching like a 6-stream conglomeration of different feeds from January 6th, dude. And that shit was bad. I don't care what anyone wants to say 5 years out. I watched it. And that shit was fucking bad.
They were trying to kill people.
Yeah,
bro.
my
It was
nigga.
pretty bad.
They're trying to say that Ashley Babbitt, and I won't, on social media, I'll shit on her. I won't do that here. But they try to say that she was murdered and she was an unarmed, innocent woman, and all she was doing was trespassing. She was trying to crawl in through a freshly broken window of a barricaded door that was barricaded because the front door that precedes that door was breached by a violent mob. If she was, my nigga, if that was Black Lives Matter, if she was any darker hue than she was when she died, they would have said she got what she deserved. She shouldn't have done that. She should have listened to the cop that told her to stop, because the Capitol Police officer that shot her told her to stop. It's in the video, but they want to make her seem like she's this innocent person.
Made it seem like she's a
dude.
hero.
I saw that shit live. I saw that shit. I mean, I had to watch the replay to catch it, but it was one of the 6 feeds that I had going.
I just looked when I was at work, and I just looked online, and I was like, "Oh, there's blood on the cobblestones for sure." They are getting busy out there. They're not trying to leave no heads unturned.
There was the other lady that died there carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag while being tread on by the rest of
the thing is, man, like when I saw it at home, I wasn't at home. I was at the office. I was saying to myself, like, wow, this is really happening. And my first thought was, what if it was Black people?
Oh,
man.
My name, you don't even have to say what if. No, we don't even have to what if. A couple of months earlier, there was a planned protest by Black Lives Matters protesters. And if you see the picture of the Capitol steps, it looks like something out of a fucking dystopian future movie. There are armed National Guardsmen every couple of feet, every couple of steps down.
Ready to get busy.
Son. They were maybe not full battle rattle, but they were armed, they were armored, and they were ready.
Yeah, this is a tough week. We had a tragic loss. The woman lost her life, and then at the same time, remembering January 6th. And it's just been already this year has been a hell of a roller coaster ride. I got to tell you.
I don't see it getting better.
No, it's true that what people say is that it's going to have to get worse before it gets better, because again, one of the things I do notice, and I'm going to try to be as real as I can with this, is that if it is a white life, if it's a white resource, if it's them that's hurting, it changes the whole dynamic of the argument. The level of outrage, it just completely changes the landscape and how people perceive things.
So my mother used to tell me, and she was told this by a white Jewish professor of hers in college. Nothing changes until it affects the ruling class. You can look
110%.
at 100 different examples of that in just the United States. The Occupy Wall Street movement doesn't become a thing if white people who were used to having stable mortgages and the value of their property didn't lose all that. We don't
Right.
dump billions into AIDS research until white homosexual men start dying of AIDS.
There you
Right?
go.
Otherwise,
There you go.
who gives a shit? Africa,
Yeah.
Africa's
Business as
Africa's
usual.
overrun with AIDS at a certain point, and the best we could do is have a concert and throw some commercials on TV. But fucking Freddie Mercury died because he had AIDS, and Rock Hudson died from AIDS, and now it's a different story.
Yep. Whole ball game changed. And this is the dynamic to be expected. But this is why one of the things that I've been really having to grapple with is having alliances with people is going to be very tricky because they're not looking at the situation from your standpoint, thinking if you have an injustice, I have
See, but
injustice. They're looking at it. They're looking at it going, if I have injustice, you have it. But if you have it and I don't see it, well, hey, I mean, good luck. I mean, we could fight for a little bit together, but it ain't gonna work out too long.
I think that untricks the whole situation, is knowing what you're gonna get. From what you just said, you already understand that you're going to only get alliances from these people when that alliance is against something that has affected them, right? So you know what you're going to get out of it. They might think that they're tricking you because they do think they're tricking you, right? They think that they've got one over on you. And it's okay. I don't care what you fucking think. Not you, Kujo.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't give a fuck what this temporary ally thinks, but I'm going to look at it the same way they're looking at it. I'm going to use you for that allyship. And once I'm done with it, I don't need you anymore. So
you move
whatever
on.
Common courtesy there was between us, it was situational. Don't think that this allyship that benefited us both is going to get me on your team when it's something that only benefits you.
Right. And it's very noticeable, man, because I got to tell you, when I go into the spaces, when I've gone into certain spaces so far, there ain't that many of us, brother.
No.
We're not there heavy with it. And what I'm gonna do now is find other spaces that do have us, do represent us. And I'm gonna do some documentation, by the way, folks, and bring it back to you and tell you what I heard, tell you what I hear, and report it back so y'all can understand what's going on the ground live. So if you want to get involved, you get involved, and if you don't, you don't. Just give you some insight before you step into the arena.
Yeah, and you do. I mean, I think it's kind of also not on the podcast level. I just mean like on the personal level. It's kind of it's in our best interest to create these spaces if they don't exist, right? And I think that is what we're trying to do here, right? As a result of the necessity of having more spaces where we can talk about the things that affect us without having to rely on the allyship of people who are only temporary allies. Creating those spaces is incumbent on us.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially that you and I are getting older, and we need to leave these spaces for this younger generation, but not necessarily feel comfortable in, but to have access to.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, man, we are literally some of the first hip hop babies. Like, we're like the first hip hop generation, Generation X.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that makes us unique on multiple levels. And I don't even pretend like I know how things are going to look for us and because I know hip hop right now is just going through a strange metamorphosis, but it's not going to die. It's just going to turn and change as it becomes less popular. You'll have people in the space that actually really respect the craft and the art, because right now it is what it is. There's money in it and people are capitalizing on it left and right. And me and my lady, we talk about it all the time, and I tell her, I say, yo, when I was younger, like Captain Crunch and all these commercials for kids and all that, they did not have hip hop songs.
Yeah, nah, son. I do talk to my wife about that. When we see shit and it's like, yo, they just had to hip hop that shit. They had to, right? They couldn't leave it alone.
Yeah. Had to, in order to sell it, it's got to have that beat. And then now I look at even boxers, when boxers come out to a ring, it's almost like you got to play some hardcore hip hop. And then how many hip hop artists have opened up for like fighters, MMA fighters and box? I mean, come on, bro. Like, it's ridiculous. But in that process, we've lost something in the craft because now everybody wants to do it and nobody's really respects their craft. They look at it like, yo, if I go online and make a little bit of a beat, I can jump on and pop this
I mean,
off.
it's
Kind of
not
like a
that they
Jack
look at
Harlow.
it that way. That is how it is now.
Yeah. Like a Jack Harlow kind of thing,
Yeah,
man. Because
I
that
mean,
dude,
that's good and bad though, because that environment gives you Bad Bunny. Without SoundCloud, there's no Bad Bunny.
Good point. Which also, and we should wrap things up. By the way, we may have to get to those other topics another day, folks. But which also we got to discuss that. We have to discuss.
We got
that.
the perfect opportunity to discuss that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we got to get into that heavy, and I'm gonna reach out to somebody, and we're gonna have somebody on, folks, to have the conversation and drop some real dope information to y'all on the process. So let's do it.
All right, man.
Let's do it. Want to wrap things up, man?
Let's wrap it
like
up.
I said, I think, because we went strong. We went for like 2 hours.
Almost.
Right now.
We're at like an hour and 50, I think.
Yeah, brother.
All right, brother.
Yeah, brother. All right. Hey, folks, thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the time. We're just wrapping things up because you know what? We got a lot of things to do. We got more shows to set up and keep you guys informed and keep you in the loop, as well as stay sharp and on point. And I wish you all the best, folks, for the new year in the Cypher Podcast. What you got to say?
Not much, man. I just hope everybody gets what they want out of this new year. Don't be discouraged if it feels like a dumpster fire, because that's what it is. You're not bugging out. It's a dumpster fire, but we got to get through it. You don't got a choice.
He leaving you with a happy note. Be a bad guy right there. Bad guy. Bad guy's a bad guy. But it's true. He's 110% spot on, man. So let's keep it pushing, folks. In the Cypher Podcast, signing out for tonight.
Peace.